Welcome to this episode of the Heartbeat for Hire podcast. I feature Olympians, CEOs, disruptors, authors, professional athletes, and the best of the best, where they share their stories of resilience with my lens on leadership and culture. Let's get started. Greetings and welcome to this episode of Heartbeat for Hire. You know I love to bring you stories of resilience, and today is no exception. Please welcome to the show, Josh Perry. Josh is a former X Games athlete and multiple brain tumor survivor who has dedicated his life to helping people perform at the highest level at home and in the workplace. Josh's life mission is to guide others in transcending their circumstances and increasing their quality of life by training their mind and their body to endure and overcome challenges, of which he has had many. Josh, welcome to the show. So happy you're here.
Thanks, Lyndsay. I appreciate you having me here, and it's always a pleasure to connect with people like yourself. And we got connected through a mutual friend, I believe it was Mark, that
Yes.
seems to be connecting me with a lot of great people, and I'm starting to build more and more friendships and relationships. And it's a pleasure to be able to have this conversation and share some time and energy today.
Oh my God. Well, I'm thrilled to have you on and as a fellow outlier and with so many mutual friends. I'm so excited for them to hear your story. So that brings me to my first question, which is always tell us your story.
So I'll do my best to shrink it down. Grew up in a working class family, and I originally was obsessed with sports of all kinds. Played t-ball, then got into little league basketball, and then got into action sports. Started skateboarding, snowboarding, rollerblading, and then bikes came along and dirt bikes, things like that. And I asked, it was my birthday is right before Christmas, it's in November, and so for my 13th birthday and that Christmas, I asked for a dirt bike because I was obsessed. Like, that's what I wanted. I got the next best thing. Parents couldn't afford a dirt bike. I got a BMX bike.
Yeah.
And I didn't understand at the time. I don't think anyone would have fathomed that it would have changed the trajectory of my life in such a profound way, literally saving my life in multiple ways and figuratively. And it got into a point where I didn't make the freshman basketball team. That was like my original passion, my dream was to go to UNC because Michael Jordan went there. I want to go to the NBA. I was obsessed with basketball. Didn't make the team. Understood now. I was splitting my focus with BMX as I was progressing there. And that's when all of my focus went into the BMX route and that sport. Started competing, locally, regionally, nationally, started making a couple $100 at contests I was winning. I'm like 16 years old. I'm like, oh, cool, $300, and some prizes, some parts, and
$300 at 16 is a lot. That's great.
it just started to grow. And at the same time, I decided to go to a technical high school. I wanted to learn how to own and operate my own landscaping business. I had started that before high school, the friend of the family, learned the trade and was getting really good at it. I really enjoyed working with my hands and my body and taking something and improving it. In landscaping, we were doing that every day. We were taking something and improving how it looked and how it functioned. And so I decided, all right, technical high school. I knew come 10th grade, co-op program allowed me to go to work for 2 weeks,
Yeah.
make money, earn credit, not be in school, and then go to academics for the other 2 weeks. I'd oscillate back and forth the rest of my high school. And to me, that was like, make money, less school, easier academics, and I can focus on this business. And I can use the funds to provide my way to these contests around the country. Lo and behold, BMX contest season is same season as landscape season, spring, summer, and I was asking for a lot of Fridays and Mondays off, and then that's where the ultimatum came. And didn't realize at the time, but I was just like, boss told me work, BMX, what is it? Proud of you either way, but I gotta know. I went BMX, and I knew there's something inside of me that knew this wasn't gonna be a possibility later on, but I could always go back to school. I could always go back to working. But I had a chance to train with the best of the best, Dave Mira, the late great Dave Mira, other professionals, and I turned pro in my junior year of high school. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna go all in on this. And then my parents, supported me in that route, signed me out of school, dropped out of high school, moved from Massachusetts to North Carolina, rented my friend's storage closet the first couple months of my adult living experience on a blow up mattress and a stack of clothes and my bike, and was living the dream. And got into X Games a couple years later, and then training for a contest coming up in April 2010. I had a trick go wrong, fell, hit my head, got a concussion, had to get an MRI after a year of complaining of headaches, migraines, vision problems, being denied a scan, looked at and judged by the cover of my book, so to speak, not overweight, in shape, 2021. you don't need a scan. You just have headaches. It's normal, as they told me. Here's some pain meds. Come back if you need more. I don't know. I'm not a doctor. I'm just a civilian. So didn't take the pain meds because I had this weird association with the flu when I was younger. Took them, vomited after, and I always had
Yeah.
this weird thing. But that head injury, that concussion, it saved my life. Had I not hit my head, I'd be dead today. Because what it revealed was on accident that I had a massive brain tumor. So didn't have a pain pill deficiency, I had a brain tumor. It
Yeah.
took that concussion to really look at what was going on inside of my body and my my head, my brain. And that was the moment that changed my life because that was the first moment I had experienced real threat to my existence as a human being, real fear. We talk about fear in all these different ways. That was a moment where my life was about to end in my mind.
Well,
And
and
that's
Josh, I mean, you had to just be completely gutted when you're given that diagnosis. I mean, you're at the peak of your career. I mean, you're young, so you feel like you've got years ahead in this profession. You're pro, so people are depending on you. I mean, what were some of the thoughts that were going through your head when they told you?
so the first thoughts were understanding the doctor told me, hey, we don't, it's funny how it worked out because the doctor, when he came in, he had me sit down and said, hey, you have an abnormal scan. And I was like, oh man, I know I twitch a lot when I'm falling asleep. I tend to fall asleep in MRIs. Do we have to do it again? He's like, no, the scan was clear, but there's something in your brain that shouldn't be there. And I remember laughing out loud. I'd be like, what do you mean? I
Yeah.
can't possibly have put something in there. Like, what are you saying? And he was like, well, at this time, we don't know if it's benign or cancerous, but you have a brain tumor and we know you need to have surgery immediately if you want a chance at living. And by the way, you'll probably never ride your bike again. So all I heard was cancer, you may die, never gonna ride your bike again. And it was like one of those moments in like a movie scene where the camera slowly pans around, like there's like the ringing and the noise just kind of magnifies, and I just
Yeah.
was like stuck and paralyzed. Every emotion went straight through me, and I just felt numb. The thoughts were, I'm gonna die, and then it was just this hyper obsession of, I'm never gonna ride my bike again.
Yeah.
Everything I've worked for to live my dream, all the people that, all the teachers that doubted me, all the people that, talked down on me, like, oh, it's not possible, like you're just wasting your time. All that stuff was about to be true. And what am I going to do? Am I a bad person? I was remember asking myself, like, what did I do to deserve this?
Mm.
And so like the fear of death just like kind of passed by, and it was just like this obsession
Yeah.
of
Why
my,
me?
my
Yeah.
dream.
Yeah, I think that why me is a really normal response for a lot of people. But I know you're about to share what happened next and how it moved you from that mental state to a very different mindset, which I really want to dig in on. So keep going.
Yeah, so after I finally like it was like, I got back in my body, got up and I left and I just tried to call my mom and tell her and just like a bad dream, like no matter how hard you try to yell, nothing comes out.
Yeah.
So after a minute or two, whatever it was, she finally, picked up that something was wrong. And it was really the moment of like that victim mentality, just like life's happening to me. This isn't
Yeah.
fair. Why this sucks. But what really helped me shift, it was like 9 days between diagnosis and surgery. My surgeon actually moved some of his patients to get me in sooner. He said that my case was
That
that severe,
important. Yeah.
and it was like that 9 day period where understanding my mom had battled colon cancer and she's still alive and well today, and like always push forward with a smile on her face, and also learning remembering Lance Armstrong's story, another cyclist, a little different objective with their
Sure.
wheels on the ground, but another cyclist, something similar to me, and he went through brain, lung, and testicular cancer. And so in my mind I was like, oh, well, this person overcame that, got back on the bike.
Mhm.
I'm going through one third of it. They don't even know if it's, cancerous or not.
Right.
But here is someone I can model after. I wasn't conscious of this. This is just a connection I had.
Yeah.
And so it was that shift between the diagnosis and the surgery of, rather than focusing on, oh man, what if I don't wake up? Or what if, I'm paralyzed like they told me, or I can't ride my bike, or I'm blind, or I can't, like
Yeah.
all these things. What am I going to do differently when I wake up? How am I going to be different? And how am I going to ride and treat my life differently? So it was that shift in perspective in linguistics. And that was the thing that I didn't know was going to change me forever. So looking back on it now, I'm grateful for that moment because it taught me how to endure, how to adapt, how to regulate. BMX helped me in that regulation, component, but most importantly, it taught me to audit my mindset and how I was looking at myself in the world so I could overcome challenges. And that's a
You
big
know,
thing I'm about today. It's not, we can't prevent things. but we
Yeah.
can train our body and mind to be able to go through those levels of overcoming something because we
Yeah.
can't control things. It's just going to
I,
happen.
I think you're right. And I think it's not a question of am I gonna get cancer or will I know someone that has cancer? I mean, it's inevitable. We all will. And I mean, I can't even count on all 10 fingers and toes how many people in my life have survived and not cancer. And how you respond to a diagnosis, and I've had my fair share of medical scares as well and near-death experience too, so I can relate to your mindset. Um, how you choose to live is so important. And I think when you make that choice and you compare yourself to great people who are persevering and pursuing their dreams, it's such a good role model for you and a way to model your life. And I just love that you figured that out at a young age and continued to leverage that because that wasn't the end, right? You had the surgery and then what?
So I thought best case scenario, a year I'll be back riding my bike after the surgery. Didn't know it takes 4 weeks for the skull to fuse back together. So I
Ugh.
went in 4.5 weeks, got the MRI. Surgeon was like, everything looks good. Got 4 titanium screws. The 75 stitches or staples and 16 stitches were removed.
Yeah.
Hair was starting to grow back. And I was like, all right, feeling good. He's like, all right, just take another week off just to make sure. And
Yeah.
then slowly ease back into riding. So about 5.5 weeks, I was back on my bike with the, my athletic trainer kind of looking over, making sure, like
Yeah.
using being a governor to how, I was just so excited. There was a lot that I had to get back, like balance, coordination. Like there's so much that was like just off and weird. But 13 weeks from surgery, I was in England competing and made top 10 my first contest back. And the next season, just back full on training and riding. And it did take about 2 years for my confidence to
Mm.
come back. And, there's always that thing in the back of my head, that inner critic of like, oh, like be careful. But I
Yeah.
kept pushing through it because that's all I knew to do as a BMX athlete. And so in 2012, a routine MRI, I was getting them, annually at this point, showed that two masses had grown back. And my surgeon had mentioned because of when they got in there for the initial surgery, the tumor had wrapped around the artery and the optic nerve, and so they couldn't risk hitting either of them. So he suggested it was residual cell growth.
Sure.
And I got this news when I was in India doing, performing shows for a company out there. And, I remember taking the train back, just thinking, I just started breaking down. I was by myself on this train. I had to leave early and I was just breaking down. And then throughout that, I don't know how many hours I was on that train, it occurred to me, hey, you did this once.
Yeah.
This isn't as bad. And they're suggesting you may not have to have surgery. You may just have to have radiation,
Yeah.
different form of treatment. So you can do this. And I just got focused again on riding my bike and knowing I have evidence that I'm the type of person that can overcome things.
Mm.
And so I went through a process called gamma knife radio treatment or radiosurgery treatment. And, 6 months later, got a scan, no progression. Another 6 months, started to see some decreasing in size.
Mhm.
So went on my way for the next 5 years. And then 2017, got another diagnosis. A routine MRI showed two new masses had popped up on the other side of my brain.
Mm.
And at this time, I was learning about metabolic health and holistic health, specifically, blood sugar regulation, insulin, all this good stuff. And I remember learning about a term called epigenetics,
Mm.
the gene expression, how we can largely control gene expression with diet, sleep, exercise, mindset, reducing stress. And they told me, hey, the other two tumors that were treated by gamma knife, they're chilling. This is my language. They're chilling. These new two that popped up, we don't know what's causing them. We suspect you may have a genetic disorder called neurofibromatosis, NF2 for short.
Attention, visionary leaders. Are you ready to elevate your leadership style and create an exceptional workplace that stands out from the crowd? I'm here to introduce you to a game-changing resource that will transform the way you lead and shape your company culture. It's time to embrace the power of top-down culture. This practical guide empowers your leadership for lasting success, helping you create a workplace where everyone thrives. Get top-down culture today, and let's reshape the future of leadership together.
I just heard genetic, and I remember epigenetics, and I got really passionate about low carb ketogenic eating styles, intermittent fasting, things like that. to where years went by and I had been implementing this lifestyle, routine scans, they had stopped growing. Okay, cool. May of 2021, had a seizure in my sleep. Thankfully, my wife is a sports medicine professional, athletic trainer. That's a separate story of how we met and came to be. But she took care of me. The ambulance came, got me to the hospital. MRI showed a fifth brain tumor, a golf ball size, a little larger in my frontal lobe, a little to the left. Explain the seizure. So went into awake brain surgery with Dr. Quinones at Mayo Clinic Jacksonville in August of 2021. And this was such a different experience because I'm learning now it was the trauma I wasn't processing and the persona I was taking on, that I wasn't going to let my circumstances define me, which is something I believe in.
Yeah.
But I was distorting my reality in such a level as kind of being delusional, but it worked in that moment. And now I've been unraveling the trauma and like the suppression of that stuff. But what I decided was, hey, here's an opportunity that I was scared of 11 years ago because I thought I was going to be awake for the first one. I wasn't. Here's another opportunity. I'm going to be awake for surgery. How many people, even if they had the money to pay for it, could do that? And I've been getting interested in different levels of consciousness with like float tanks and meditation, different types of psychedelics and things. And I was like, here's another crazy human experience. I can participate in my surgery and see what that's like. So I took on the perspective.
Way to go. Great attitude to have, Josh. I would have been petrified. So yeah.
Well, that was an option. And I recognized that came in.
Yeah.
And I decided this level of energy, anxiety, excitement, same thing to me. Let's choose the excitement. It got to a point where a couple of days before surgery, I remember writing this. I think I have it pinned in one of my LinkedIn posts. And it was just like, I was like, I'm so calm. The thought of like, am I about to die? Is that why I'm so calm? Because like my intuition, like my whatever you want to call it, is prepared. Or am I just did the work and I'm confident in the surgery and I'm just detaching. I'm letting go of control because I have no other options.
That's
and so there's
wild.
like this weird dynamic.
It's wild that you said, I'm so calm, because I can tell you from my own experience, that is exactly what you feel when you die. You let go, you completely acquiesce, you relax, and it's effortless. It is the most peaceful feeling. So I can totally sense why you would feel this is a little eerie, but I love that you took on this mindset and looked at it as an opportunity. And I think when people can change the way they view an obstacle, a hurdle, a diagnosis, a problem as, okay, this is an opportunity and I'm going to be an example, or I'm going to get through this and be able to tell my tale, which is always how I say, when you tell your story, you talk about how you grew from the worst thing that ever happened to you. I love that you figured that out, not once, not twice, but 3 times. So you do the surgery, you're awake.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You make it through.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And here you are. And then what?
Yeah, I want to go back to something you just said, because that was another option that I chose. Was here's another opportunity 11 years later for me to show people that what I've been talking about for 10 and a half, 11 years, I live, because it'd been so long since the first surgery. So I looked at it as another opportunity to be a example of me overcoming something and me utilizing all the things that I've been sharing, that I've been learning. Even though I do it when no one's watching and when people are watching, I looked at this as another opportunity as, hey, here's a challenge that I can just let people into. I wasn't doing that back, in 2010 with the first surgery, but here I was documenting the process and sharing it publicly. And so I looked as an opportunity to let people know and let people in to see how this stuff works, how I apply it. And so that was something that was helpful, as well as just looking at these things as treat them like injuries. Honestly, that's what it started to help me in the first one. Here's a BMX injury. What do I do?
Yeah.
I can't change the circumstances,
right,
but I can change how I think and my behavior. So I looked at it as like, all right, well, what's next? What do I do? And I later learned throughout the first and second surgery, a concept of being at cause is greater than being at effect to my environment. And to me, that was so profound. I got it in small form tattooed on my hand, a C. So C greater than E. It's being at cause is greater than being at effect. To me, that's self-empowerment. And that mindset is something I try to focus on. And it doesn't matter if I, thought or felt some way or acted some way. It's remembering to get back to cause, get back to being at cause.
Mm.
The book I mentioned, I'm reading 15 Commitments to Conscious Leadership. They talk about above the line or below the line.
Mm-hmm.
To me, conscious above the line is being at cause.
Mm-hmm.
So going through the surgery, such a surreal experience because you're awake for everything and you can see the things you normally don't see in surgery. And they do put you out for a little while. And I came to as they were cutting into my skull.
Ugh.
And it was such a weird, I don't know how to describe it because you can't feel anything, obviously, but you can sense your body vibrating. You can hear everything. I woke up to the sound and just knowing what's going on, but not being in a panic mode. Obviously, there's a lot of drugs involved, there's a lot of chemicals, influencing
Oh, yeah.
situations.
Well, any woman who's had a C-section will tell you being cut into while you're awake is a very weird thing. So it's not for everyone, and it is brain surgery. I can't even imagine. So you're obviously healthy. You're doing great. What are you doing now? Because I know you're speaking and you're coaching. So who are you coaching?
So I'm coaching people in leadership positions. It could be an executive, an entrepreneur, business owner, director, manager. That's really what I've been fine tuning over the years is looking at the people that have been, resonating with my message and want to do the work. And I love focusing on leaders because they have people below them that are looking up to them. So they're leading by example. They're influencing people. So by us showing up, this is something I learned. I think we were talking about this before we started recording. I never looked at myself as a leader. And I started to recognize even in the BMX space, I was kind of leading my own path. I had a lot of influences of styles and tricks, and I just developed my own. And that's what created an awareness of me. I stood out.
Yeah.
And so then when I started taking care of myself, started doing the opposite of most people that I was surrounded by were doing, I started obviously getting mocked at first. A lot of people's insecurities were projected onto me. And then I started to get asked questions. Hey, I got this injury, or I'm trying to do this. How do I do this? How do I get better? And this was when I was still in my 20s and I was still riding and competing and training. So I looked at that now and I'm like, oh man, there's such a powerful a powerful tool at play and a responsibility when you have other people looking at what you're doing, whether you're aware of it or not. And you can use that to serve the world. And that was something that I never really understood. I just want to ride my bike. And going through all of these things, we didn't even talk about injuries or, Dave Muir taking his life. And then I was with him a couple of days prior and then having to process that. And 2 years later, my younger brother took his life and I was questioning who I was. I was depressed and I was just, I don't know, like, I didn't know what to do with my life and just kind of going through the loops and just all these things. All of these experiences I've gone through in my own micro lens of my reality, human beings share at the macro level of experience.
Yeah.
And I started to realize these things were teaching me something. And that's how I decided to look at life and consciously, even though BMX had been teaching me that the whole time. Here's the objective. Here's the tools in the environment. What do you want to do with it? How do you want to move forward? So I just love helping people in a position that other people are looking to them, whether it's a parent, an executive, an entrepreneur, like someone that is in a place of influence, because to me, that's going to create a ripple effect. And I love doing that because a lot of people think that they don't have it in them or they just need more motivation or more willpower or this or that. And really everything's inside of us. And I learned that through almost losing my life several times.
Yeah.
Most people don't need that. They just need to be pushed to see what their boundaries are and to see what potential that they have inside of them that they haven't tapped into yet.
And I think people, especially young kids, I mean, my children went through the pandemic in middle school, which is some of the worst years to go through a pandemic. Those are tough years to begin with. And so to miss out on all of that social, emotional growth is hard. But what I notice is as soon as they feel any modicum of discomfort, it's like there's no fright. It's just flight. It's like, get me out of here. This is horrible. This is scary. And I'm constantly pushing them to say, okay, you aren't in trouble. You aren't in danger. Like, can you manage? I think you can. You have it within yourself and make that choice. And so I laugh. I'm doing this show on resilience. I'm like, could you all listen to this show? Maybe you'd learn something from these amazing people. But this is something that I'm seeing adults do too. Like the second they get uncomfortable, I'm out. I don't want to do this anymore. This doesn't feel good. If it doesn't feel good, I'm out. I'm not going to spend my time doing this. But growth and comfort don't coexist. So you have to get really comfortable with being uncomfortable. So it's just a mindset. And I love that you shared so many of yours.
Yeah, we have to push ourselves. And that's what people, I think, they get to these places, especially with different status or in the leadership ranks or whatever it is, we get comfortable. And then the brain has no reason to adapt and to grow and
Yeah.
to learn new stuff. And so when we can always ask ourselves, am I being at cause? Am I doing the things to continue to grow, to
Yeah.
continue to learn? Am I being, a humble? Am I having humility and empathy and curiosity most importantly? Those are the skills that we can focus on.
Mm.
And then physically, it's just about pushing ourselves to do things we don't want to do when we don't want to do them.
Yeah.
And we're not talking about in the severe, someone will say, well, what about this? And I get hurt. No, we're talking about in a safe manner, pushing yourself. For me, an example is I'm 14 days into running, something I've always said I hate doing. I still don't enjoy it. My body still rejects it, but I push myself. And
Yeah.
because I do these small things, that's what I think anyone can take away is if you want to create more resilience, more willpower, then build the evidence of you doing the things you don't want to do.
Yep.
We talk about, wanting to be more successful in business or wanting to be healthier. Well, stop focusing on the scoreboard, so to speak, and focus on
Just
playing
start.
the game
Yeah,
with
just
the
start.
inputs, not the outputs. And I just learned, I love neuroscience. I'm such a nerd about it. And Dr. Huberman in his podcast just was talking about a region of our brain. We have two on either side called the anterior mid-cingulate cortex. Neuroscientists are looking at it as the seat of our willpower, our will to live. It's
Mm.
smallest in obese people, but grows when they start to lose weight and refrain from indulgence and do the work. And it's largest in athletes, people identify with overcoming adversity,
Yeah,
and people in the military. All of that speaks to doing things you don't necessarily want to do
that's
for
right.
what's on the other side. And I love the quote by Jerry Rice that says, I'm willing to do what others won't today so I can do what others can't tomorrow.
Yeah,
That's how you build resilience. It's
a good
doing
quote.
that, it's being prepared. Like I said earlier, we can't control, like shit's out of our hands. Like something's gonna happen. It's not a matter
Yeah.
if it's when.
No, it's when.
To
It's
what
when.
severity, that's up, for, debate. But if we train our mind and body today, we're able to endure, adapt, regulate, and then overcome the challenges along the
I
way.
love it. I love it. So, Josh, what inspires you?
I find inspiration from anything and everywhere. Most importantly, it's from other people and their stories and overcoming things. Because for me, I can reverse engineer. And there's a quote, I believe it's Jim Rohn that said this. I haven't looked into his work, but I always hear it referenced.
Mhm.
Success leaves clues.
Mhm.
So I've learned to model excellence. What that means to me is look at people doing something I want to do,
Yeah.
learn about them, study their psychology, study their physiology. What are they doing? What are they thinking? How do they process stuff? For me, that inspires me so much to do the things that I do. On top of that, it's knowing people like my brother Danny and Dave Mira, people that are no longer here and able to better themselves, and all the people that are alive and not physically able to do the things they want to do, is constantly reminding myself of these things and why I need to push forward because I've been through so much. We even talk about this. I flatlined at a contest in 2011. I hit my head so hard in practice. I flatlined and woke up in an ambulance. Like I've had so many close calls with death and I'm still here.
Yeah.
And I don't take that lightly. I take that on the responsibility of why I walked away from my career as a professional athlete on my own terms. Something
Yeah.
many people don't get to do. I chose to do that to follow this path because I'm still here.
Yeah.
And so conversations like this inspire me because clearly it brings out the energy in me and I want to share that with other people
Yeah.
because we're all here. We woke up. How many people do we know that didn't wake up today?
That's right. No, well, your energy is palpable. What would you like your legacy to be?
I don't know. I don't really think about that. Given that question, what comes up for me right now is I want people to be inspired by what I talk about and most importantly, what I do to do something differently in their life for the better.
Mhm.
I want to be known as someone that did everything they could to serve other people in their life, that did their own work, that served them to a point where they could help other people. That's at the end of the day, I think all of why I do what I do, because I want other people to experience life the best way they can with as little suffering as possible. Because I believe suffering is a choice.
Yeah.
I've learned that it's a hard pill to swallow because you have to recognize yourself.
Yeah.
You have to look in. You have to, obviously still work through this. We always will. The work never stops. But I want to be known for that, doing the work, and so other people can do the work as well.
Well, you're already on your way. What's next for you, Josh?
10 days is my 1 year wedding anniversary. So my wife and I are going to be celebrating that. That's
Excellent.
it's pretty exciting. What's next? Beyond that, still working on my golf game, and then professionally, working on getting my manuscript for my first book completed with my friend and editor, and
Excellent.
just trying to look for more speaking opportunities and more opportunities to help people in their lives and continue growing my business and learning along the way.
I love
Uh,
it.
so yeah, just
And
looking for that growth.
how can people find you?
So I think my website's probably the best one-stop shop, joshperrybmx.com. I'm most active on LinkedIn these days in terms of social media, but
Me too.
all of the social medias are Josh Perry BMX, and that's
Excellent.
another story of its own of why I just kept everything, especially the website. That
That's
even though I
smart.
tried to run away from BMX and that
It's
whole
branding,
three-letter,
man. No, it's good. It's
but
branding. You
20
have been
something
an
years now.
amazing, amazing guest. Thank you for sharing your stories, plural. And I'm so grateful that you're in my circle of people. And I'm just so grateful you're on the show. So thank you, friend.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me, and it's always a pleasure to have an opportunity and an honor to share my story and what I've learned along the way and my passion for helping other people. So, having another friend, and a relationship to grow, and some other friends around us, it's always a beautiful thing, and I really appreciate it.
Cheers to that. Guys, if you like this episode, please subscribe to my YouTube channel or leave a 5-star review at Spotify or Apple. Thank you for listening to the Heartbeat for Hire podcast. Have a great day.